National Assembly was to pass that request, the National Assembly was conscious through scrutiny that NDE, the National Directorate of Employment, will be the agency to implement the program. And we approve that because we know NDE has the capacity to implement the program. The committee resolved that the program should be suspended until such explanations are provided on how this program will be implemented.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, responding to journalists and clearly stating the position of the National Assembly on the Special Public Works Program of the federal government ahead of a meeting the following day between the National Assembly and the Minister of Labor over the controversies which the Public Works Program had generated. Welcome to the Gavel. I am Terry Ikumi. Now, the National Assembly Joint Committee on Labor was engaged in a war of words with the Minister of State for Labor, Festus Keyamo, on Tuesday, June 30, over the modalities for choosing members of the selection committees of the Special Public Works Program in each state, prompting the National Assembly to suspend the program. Now, while the argument persists on whether the National Assembly has the powers to suspend the program, a meeting was called by the President of the Senate with the Minister of Labor and Employment. And of course, the man in the eye of the storm, Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, was in attendance. Let's see how that turned out. The highlight of the meeting was perhaps an apology from the Minister of Labor over the altercation between the Minister of State for Labor, Festus Keyamo, and members of the National Assembly Joint Committee on Labor during an interactive session.
I apologize on behalf of the Ministry for what took place at the last time. And I hope this apology will be taken by the members of the committee and the entire National Assembly, because I'm aware and I know that a committee is a representative of the whole. Even the committee room is an extension of our annual chambers over there, the plenary chambers. We deeply regret the incident that happened at the last visit, the altercations that followed it between my Minister of State and members of the Joint Committee. Therefore, we decided that as a team, we'll come in full force and give you the necessary information that we will need so that we can fast-track this program.
That interactive session between Mr. Keyamo and the National Assembly Committees on Labor on June 30 degenerated into a shouting match over the modalities for the execution of the federal government's Special Public Works Program.
By design, by the constitutional...
The President of the Senate, in wading into the disagreement, insisted that the Ministry of Labor should only play a supervisory role in the execution of the program, which is expected to see to the employment of 774,000 low-skilled workers across the country in 774 local government areas.
We are not asking anybody to give us the program, no. We want the program to be transparently implemented. We want the program to follow the law. And I just pray that we continue to be on the same page, because on this, we are not going to allow the ministry headquarters to implement this program at all. All previous actions are null and void. We don't recognize them. From today, when you go to the committee room, please, you and your committee engage and start afresh, and we support you all the way.
This legislature has the power of the purse. We have the power of planning and proposals and execution. But by the constitutional provisions of appropriation, it is the legislature that has the power of the purse. We are not oblivious of that situation. But we must work hand in hand without, acrimony or even drawing a very rigid line of who has this power and who doesn't have this other power. That is the only way programs of government can be made sustainable, can be executed for the benefit of our people.
Afterwards, members of the Joint Committee and the Ministers of Labour assembled in another hearing room where the ministers were expected to brief the lawmakers on how they will proceed with the program. And this is how it ended.
We'll be with you. We'll support NDA under your leadership, Mr. Honourable Minister, for this program to succeed. So it is the decision of the National Assembly, not only the joint committees of the both houses, the decision of the National Assembly, just like the Senate President have said it, that we stand by our statement. Go back, get your work plan, and report back to this whole House or this whole joint committee by Monday, 10 o'clock.
But the Minister of State for Labour is sticking to his position on how the Public Works program should be implemented, just as the Director General of the National Directorate of Employment aligns with the position of the National Assembly.
I am the chairman of the board of the NDA. Do you understand that? Yeah. The minister is the chairman of the board of the NDA. So when you say go back and bring a plan, you are still coming back to me. I'm the chairman of the board of NDA. The directives of the National Assembly is not binding on me. This is a great constitutional issue that we go to the Attorney General at the end of the day for interpretation. Except, like I said, Mr. President says I should step aside and allow them hijack the process. Because the game, like you have seen today, is simply that they are conniving with a certain functionary of government to design the program, hijack the program against the wishes of Nigerians. Our constitution is the constitution. There's only one president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that can give directives to the executive. And there are no two bosses.
He is my supervising minister. His role is to supervise, not to implement and execute. I'm telling you in confidence, I said it before and I'm now saying it. The 20-man state selection committee, I saw it in social media like some of you saw it, and as the chief executive of that agency. Is there justice in this?
No.
It has been said clearly, mine is to inform him for his own information. But issue of planning execution is principally the work of NDE. As I have said, we have done it before, and we have done it, and we are going to do it now. And inshallah, we're going to do it successfully.
Now let's take a look at Tuesday's plenary in both chambers of the National Assembly. The lawmakers reacted to the issue of rape and gender-based violence. Now, while the House, through a motion, urged the federal government to establish special courts for rape, the Senate passed a bill against sexual harassment in tertiary educational institutions. Let's look at these and other happenings during Tuesday's plenary. The National Assembly is considering the best options to tackle the surge in rape and gender-based violence in the country. During Tuesday's plenary in the House of Representatives, a lawmaker canvassed for speedy trial of cases involving rape and gender-based violence, as well as capital punishment for rapists.
If these cases are concluded within months or even weeks, with strong conviction to back up the conviction, it will have a massive effect on those who are nursing the intention to commit similar crimes. Special courts could be set up to fully harness the law and ensure accelerated hearings so that Nigerians will know that the laws will be applied quickly and fully. The delay in the trial has serious psychological impact on the victims and mostly the minors. The House resolved to condemn in strong terms the act of rape and all other gender-based violence over the past months within the country. Urge the federal government to immediately set up special court for the offense of rape, sexual and gender-based violence. Urge the federal government through its relevant regulatory agencies to set up accelerated court hearing mechanisms and prosecution for rape, sexual and gender-based violence cases in court.
Many victims of rape and gender-based violence in Nigeria have complained about the slow and difficult process of getting justice, and many believe that this has further emboldened perpetrators, which could be responsible for the surge in recent times. Meanwhile, sexual harassment in Nigerian schools, especially tertiary institutions, have also been brought to the fore in recent times. the Senate has passed a bill which criminalizes the act of neglect or failure of administrative heads of tertiary educational institutions to address complaints of sexual harassment within a specified period of time.
To prohibit the offense of sexual harassment of students in tertiary institutions, criminalize the act of neglect or failure of administrative heads of tertiary educational institutions to address complaints of sexual harassment within a specified period of time. Create a strict liability offense by removing mutual consent as a defense in the prosecution of sexual harassment cases in tertiary educational institutions, and maintain and sustain the fiduciary relationship that exists between educators and students.
We're not trying to say that because of that special relationship between a lecturer and a student, it is difficult, almost impossible, for a student to say no to a lecturer. Because when the student does that, it is either she succumbs, in which case she pays the price, or if it does not succumb, she may be in that institution for 7, 8 years for a course that ought to be 3 or 4 years.
As we are trying to protect the female students, we must be seen to be protecting some innocent lecturers. Some innocent lecturers. In these days of internet, a lecturer can easily be set up. We have to be very, very careful.
Also during plenary on Tuesday, the House of Representatives resolved to investigate an alleged disregard of presidential directive by the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige. The House is accusing the minister of incessant and arbitral breach of presidential directives on the suspension of top management and executive committee members of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund and other government agencies.
For you to be removed from a position, it takes some procedure. They will give you time to defend yourself. If you have committed any offense, whatsoever, time will be given to you. You'll be invited by disciplinary committees, and that procedure will be followed. But in this case, when a minister doesn't like your face, or a chief executive doesn't like your face, he will just use his own power as if we are practicing a fascist system of government in Nigeria.
The agency has a board. If there's a disciplinary action required, the resolution of the board must go to the minister, from the minister to the SGF before a decision is taken. The NSITF that we are talking about, they submitted the budget of NSITF to him. He single-handedly altered all the budgets, altered the figures. And when the men and women at that agency protested, he threatened to remove them. What did he do? The minister inserted a 2 billion commission project, 2 billion naira worth. The management and staff of that agency, the management and the executive committee of that agency to be out of office so that he can implement that budget. What did he do, Mr. Speaker? He removed all the people who are against that decision and left it to the people who never knew about the argument between them.
Finally, the House of Representatives has mandated its Committee on Public Accounts to investigate the alleged illegal withdrawals from the dividends accounts of the Nigerian liquefied natural gas. The matter was raised as a matter of urgent public importance by the minority leader of the House, who alleged that the withdrawals were made by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC.
Worried that NNPC, who represent the government of Nigeria on the board of LNG, had unilaterally, without the required consultation with the state and mandatory appropriation from the National Assembly, illegally tampered with the funds of LNG dividend account to the tune of $1.05 billion, thereby violating nation's appropriation law. However, dividends from the LNG are supposed to be paid into the Consolidated Revenue Funds account of the federal government and to be shared among the 3 tiers of government. Concerned that there are no records showing the audit and recovery of accrued funds from LNG by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Hence, the need for a thorough investigation of the activities on the LNG so as to recover the $1 billion.
To the Gavel, the House of Representatives has commenced a probe of the power sector. The probe is being carried out by the ad hoc committee led by the majority leader of the House, Ado Doguwa, who says the sector is confronted with the issue of liquidity, with the gas suppliers claiming billions of naira being owed them. The committee's mandate covers the entire privatization process, which Nigerians and indeed the lawmakers say has shown no improvement in the power sector, despite billions of naira that have been sunk into it. Take a listen. On the first day of the hearing, at least 10 players in the power sector were invited to make presentations. The Deputy Speaker of the House, who represented the Speaker at the hearing, opened the session. He charged the committee to ensure a thorough process, just as the chairman of the committee highlighted some of the power sector challenges, which include tariffs which are not cost-reflective.
It is a very, very important assignment because of the humongous money that have been invested over the past years in this very important sector. I want to say with that fair quotation, over 1.2 trillion has so far been invested. And there is no commensurate resolve. This is a very important hearing that could lead us to a very good path. And I want to believe that their work, I have no doubt in the capability and the people, composition of people who are assigned to this very important assignment. They are going to do a very thorough job.
The inability of some of these institutions to meet the covenant obligations they entered into at the time of privatization has reduced the capacity to enable reliable and quality electricity supply for both domestic and commercial use. Sadly, it appears to the common man that there is hike in electricity tariff without corresponding increase in the quantity and quality of electricity supply in the country.
Then the different concerned parties made their presentations.
Because the TISCO came to us and they asked through an application that they would like to have a tariff increase. Of course, when we went around and visited the whole country with all the different customers, the customers said they were not averse for payment of the increase. We were not the one negotiating increase. It's the TISCO that wanted increase. However, the customer that we visit all over the country said they do not mind, but it has to be quality-based and it has to be reliable power supply. Hence, the new language we term as service reflective tariff.
TCN is not adequately funded to do its own responsibilities. So you will see that we have a lot of projects since from 2001 up to date that are not completed. In our presentation, we try to name the projects that are spread all over the country. The name of the project, the contract amount, percentage completion, and how much is needed to complete those projects.
On the second day of the hearing, a number of government agencies were also invited to make presentations, but some of them failed to show up. This infuriated the committee chairman, who described their action as unpatriotic and discouraging in the efforts of the committee to come up with a comprehensive report on how to solve the problems of the power sector.
I don't know how this committee can actually conclude and come up with a comprehensive report to guide the House of Representatives without the presence or contribution of key and critical agencies, institutions like the CBN. The CBN governor decided not to come. The CBN governor decided not to submit any documentary submission, and worst of all, nobody is here to even give us personal official excuses why that could not happen. This is unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. The committee will not take that, and the central bank governor must take this seriously. We have no cause whatsoever to be undermined. And the so-called 600 billion naira that was said to have been released to the central bank, 600 billion naira. The Minister of Finance was here under oath. He has confessed that out of the 320 billion already paid to the entitled companies, the balance of this 600 billion naira is lagging in the Central Bank of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He said so under oath, the representative of the minister. And unfortunately, here we are. The CBN governor decided not to be here for us to cross-check this part. So on behalf of the committee, I want to rule that these two government officials, the CBN governor, the Accountant General of the Federation, also cause appearance to this committee to make their submissions so that we can find our work easier.
He insists that everything will be done in the full glare of the public.
So if anybody wants to think that we will invite him into a committee room or we invite him into anywhere else to discuss or engage matters like this, fine, we will not do that. It is called a public investigative public hearing, and we must do that in public.
The absence of the governor of the CBN and the accountant general, however, did not prevent the hearing from taking place.
What should have been happening is that every 6 months, the regulator should have been making adjustments so that there's a balance. It's all common knowledge now that from 2016 to up to about 2018, these adjustments were not done. There were, however, an attempt last year, June, to try and calculate, considering that the tariff for discos has not been adjusted, what is their payment level? So the NEC came up with a minimum remittance. I should give them credit. The philosophy was good to try and start bringing confidence to the market. However, the assumptions, even which went into those minimum remittance, still need fine-tuning so that discos are not shortchanged. In a transparent manner, there has to be an ongoing discussion and put in the right figures.
Now, from 2013 till now, we've been asking so many issues, so many challenges. So if you ask me, who is in charge of the monitoring and coordination? Section 55 sub 3 already shows that there are 2 oversight functions from the National Assembly, from the presidency. So if truly NEC is submitting his report, what we want to know is, have they been giving feedback? And why is the sector still like this? Because this act made provision for firm monitoring and coordination.
On May 5 this year, the Senate set up an ad hoc committee to investigate alleged financial recklessness by the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. The committee has now commenced investigation, and it is quite revealing and full of accusations. The details are contained in our next report, which also looks at what transpired when the Joint Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency of the House of Representatives also commenced investigation into the alleged over $30 billion annual revenue leakage in the country. The Senate, in carrying out the probe, wants the NDDC to account for the sum of 40 billion naira allegedly spent by the Interim Management Committee within the last 3 months. The chairman of the committee queried the payment of over 1 billion naira to about 4,000 NDDC staff as COVID-19 relief allowance between February and May 2020.
Overseas travel, you spent 85.6 million. And the bulk of those travels took place between February and May. And some of them, the records of who took it, people that went to the UK to accompany, to attend graduation ceremony in the UK in May, in May, took place.
This interim management had an opportunity to spend 81 billion in 6 months. And I'm listening to the executive director projects telling me they have to pay people, they have to give people money, they have to pay for health services. Is that what the Niger Delta we used to develop?
The Senate committee was also concerned that the NDDC donated another 475 million naira to the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, for face masks and hand sanitizers, bringing the total amount expended as COVID-19 relief for NDDC staff and the police to 1.5 billion naira.
It's for each of the states, each of the police command. They didn't have the provisions was made, and the request came. And when the request came, the management asked for approval, and approval was given for this money to be paid to the police, and the equipment were bought and sent to the 9 states of the Federation.
Mr. Ojogbo fired back at the National Assembly, accusing the chairman of the 2 committees on Niger Delta in the Senate and House of Representatives of always hijacking the budget of the NDDC since its inception in 2001.
The interest of the 2 chairmen in the National Assembly clashes violently with the forensic audit. So everything must be done, including writing letter to the BPP. Where we have a copy of that letter, asking the BPP not to process our documents.
of great importance to the public is how the National Assembly will handle the allegations of the NDDC against its own members mandated to oversight the Commission. In the House of Representatives, the Joint Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency began its investigative hearing on the alleged $30 billion annual revenue leakages arising from tax evasion, misuse and diversion of foreign exchange allocations by companies and other entities. For the first hearing, some of the banks failed to attend, and this infuriated the Speaker of the House.
But I want to make it clear that the House is not going to sit idly. We do not want to be forced to go to the full extent of the law, in this case, the Constitution, to exercise the full powers of the House of Representatives.
But the woes of the committee got even worse when one of the banks presented a court order.
So it's not the bank that went to court, it's the customer on behalf of the customer that went. So it's not us, we are not the one that went to court.
You as an individual might wish to go to court, but you cannot prevent us from working, carrying out our duty as in the rule of separation of powers. We should be allowed to exist as much as you have your rights.
Do you have anything to hide in the present engagement with the Parliament as far as this investigation is concerned?
No,
yes
sir.
or no?
No, sir.
You have a registered association as registered customers of Stanbic IBTC. You don't have? I put it to you that Chief Wale Taiwo SAN is the lawyer of has always been the lawyer of IBTC. So it is IBTC that induced him to go on behalf of other customers. I put it to you.
The decision to launch a probe follows a motion of urgent national importance on the 5th of March 2020 by Representative James Faleke to rescue the country from revenue leakages, which according to him could be used to fund the country's budgets. Well, that's all the time we have on The Gavel this week. Thank you for watching. And please send feedback to thegavel@channelstv.com. I am Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.